Hi, we're back with Deep Images. How's everybody doing tonight?
Okay.
Terrific.
Awesome. We are back with our crime film series, rolling right along. So, uh, today I have Mark Baranowski, aka the Marksman at one time or another,
Yes, sir.
and the great Chris Gilpin. And before we go on, we'd like to go ahead and remind people to please drop a like, a thumbs up, whatever you call it, on our videos, because the algorithms really suck at notifying people. If you really want to know what we're up to regularly, hit that bell. Not essential, but if you really want to know before everybody else, that bell will do it. And you'll immediately hear about that video the minute I post it. And subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 500. 500 is our first big plateau. Then we're going to just forge toward 1,000, like a barnstormer. So thank you for doing those things. Feel free to leave comments, and we would love to, get a dialogue going with the audience. I'm Henry Covert, and we're going to go ahead with crime now. Let's get into it. So, first up, we have Chris. He brought a very cool movie to the table that he'd like to tell you about.
Yeah, in 1974, Sam Peckinpah made a very uh, a movie that divided the critics and audiences, I guess. It was called "Bring Me the Head of Gwyneth Paltrow." No, sorry, "Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia." Okay,
Good
it was.
idea, though.
Yeah, thank you. It was a very almost but not quite depressing, bleak, ugly, shot in grainy 16 millimeter film about a guy who loses his soul by being greedy. And with the great Warren Oates, who should have won an Oscar for my favorite movie, Two Lane Blacktop, but alas. But he was perfect for this part. He's a piano player in Mexico who is just this guy who does any job that comes along. And the head honcho of the small Mexican town is Emilio. I can't remember his name, but he was also the head honcho in the Wild Bunch.
This is an actor.
Yeah, yeah.
Is
Big
it
guy.
Fernandez? No, maybe it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah. I think Emilio Fernandez. Yeah.
He plays the general in Wild Bunch, right?
Yes, yes, that's right.
Okay, yeah, he's cool.
And in Alfredo Garcia, he has this young daughter who gets knocked up by this scumbag, and he hires Warren Oates to go
Benny.
kill the
His name's Benny.
Benny. He hires Benny to go kill this guy, and as proof, to cut his head off and bring his head back to him. And so it's a really wonderful.
The studio's like, Sam, you've really been drinking too much,
yeah,
now, buddy.
No, the critics couldn't believe it. Said, "What the hell happened to Sam Peckinpah? He's lost his mind." One critic.
Well, here's the end. My answer is he got even more brilliant than he already was.
No, I agree. It's an amazing film. Still one of his best. One critic, when it came out, called him Sam Pecker and Paul.
Damn.
It was great. So this guy goes and tracks this guy down, and he's being followed by two bad guys, Gig Young and Robert Weber. And it's somehow implied that they might be gay for each other, but that's not real explicit in there.
Yeah, I think from what was on the DVD, the MGM DVD, I think they said that was the intention, but they just didn't make it blatant because of the times.
Yeah. So Benny tracks this guy down, and he gets involved with this beautiful girl.
What's her character? Her character name? I want to say it's Maria, but maybe that's just the default Spanish.
Alita is the character.
Oh, Alita, played by Estela Vega, who's
Estela Vega. Yeah, very beautiful, sexy woman, and they get together, and he tells her what he plans to do, and she says, "Don't do this. If you kill this guy, it's like you're condemning your soul to damnation forever." And he goes, "Hey, I need money. I didn't."
Mr. Pragmatism here.
Yeah, he doesn't listen to her, and finally he kills him, and he cuts his head off with a huge sword and machete.
Way to go, dude.
And puts the head in this old canvas bag that, for the second half of the movie, starts dripping, all this mung juice out of the bag. He's driving the head around Mexico, and he's saying, he goes basically insane after that point, and he goes to the bag. "All right, Al, hold on, Al, we've got to go back. I got to get money for you, for your head." So he's pretty much half wasted. And along the way, he runs into a small group, three other scumbags, and Chris Christopherson is one of them. I guess he just came off of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. So he was one of the bad guys, and he goes to rape Isela Vega, and tells someone she or Benny kills Christopherson. And so that's a little part of the storyline there. So finally he gets back into what's his name? The General's, not the General. Yeah, the General's
same actor, yeah.
Home layout, and there's a huge shootout there where everybody gets shot. And
what does he do with the head? Remind me of that. Like when he finally brings it to that guy, I'm trying to remember what happens.
I think he just walks in there and throws it on a table and says, "Where's the money?" Basically, that's about it.
Benny's a straight shooter, man.
Yeah.
Here's the fucking head, bro.
That's all he wants. And then it just all hell breaks loose, and everybody's shooting each other in slow-mo. And
of course, yeah.
It's really cool. And
of course.
Benny, I think he
what happens to Alita? Remind me of that.
Alita. Okay, they get together, and I think he leaves Alita. I don't think that Christopherson kills her when he's raping her.
Yeah, but I don't think she makes it to the end of the movie.
Then either Christopherson killed her, or I don't remember who else would have killed her. I don't remember.
I don't know. I couldn't remember if he left her behind for her own good, or if she got killed in his little escapade.
I thought he left her behind. And there's one great scene where he's in bed with her. He wakes up in the morning, and they're both naked in bed, and he starts killing crabs that he got off of her body. He just starts
like sexually transmitted crabs.
Yeah. You can hear him crunching these crabs off of his body, and then he slaps her ass. And says like, "Ooh, fucking whore," or something to that effect. So that was a nice little comical,
beautiful romance.
Yeah, very touching. Yeah. So at the end, he brings the head back. I think he grabs the money, gets in his old car, drives away, and the General's bad guys come out and just turn the coin to Swiss cheese, and that's the end. The last shot is a machine gun facing the camera and it says "the end." And a lot of critics said, "Boy, what a piece of shit," but it wasn't. It was really a moral tale about this guy who just loses his soul.
But he can't. He's like a bad luck guy. He has bad luck. He's just trying to get ahead, man.
Yeah, he's just
literally.
Yeah, right. He's just this guy trying to survive playing a piano in a Mexican.
Yeah.
And the gay thing started where Weber and Gig Young come up to a girl who's in a bar, right? And the girl is a prostitute, I think. And she comes up and says, "Want to buy a lady a drink?" And Warren Oates is playing the piano watching this, and one of them, Robert Weber, I think, just hauls off and knocks the shit out of her for no reason, and she falls on the floor. And you see Warren Oates's eyelash go up like, oh my. And
Mine is.
I think that's where they started to imply the homosexuality of the two characters.
Yeah, it's that old saw from the old days that all gay men like are
Well,
misogynistic woman haters, woman
yeah.
killers, you know. Which
And
actually they usually like women better. Well, not sexually, but they usually idolize women more than men. So
uh, that's basically it. But the amazing thing about the filming was that it was so ugly and so grainy. And
I thought it was very raw. I thought it was kind of like Sam Peckinpah decided to just go back and make an indie
yeah,
movie.
yeah, and he did it. I mean, that was the whole theme, and his character was just very bleak, and the critics just didn't get that.
He's an impoverished dude, man. He's hard luck. I mean, that's that.
Yeah,
These have been crime tropes for decades. I don't know why people were so head scratching about it.
sure. But yeah, so really it was very ugly to watch, but the subject was ugly, and
Well, I thought it was ugly
storyline.
in a cool way, though. I mean, and that's just my opinion.
Oh no, I agree. I mean,
But I like gritty stuff.
that's great. Yeah, me too. I like
Kind of like Deadbeat at Dawn. It's
I
like
like
it looks really gritty and ugly, but the shots are brilliant.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the acting's brilliant. So
Yeah, no, I agree. Like Bad Lieutenant, something like that. Yeah.
oh yeah, hell yeah.
Um, so that was basically it. But in
Okay.
time, over the years, it turned out to be one of his best films,
Yeah.
as far as really character studies go.
Yes, exactly. We're gonna move on to another film here. I'm gonna talk about it, and then we're gonna wrap up this session of crime films on Deep Images. So I want to talk today about Better Tomorrow 2. I covered A Better Tomorrow. So let's go ahead and do the sequel here. It came out in 1987, also directed by John Woo, also co-written by John Woo. Same group of co-writers this time, except Troy Hart, the producer, jumped in, and not only did he not co-produce with John Woo, he insisted on producing the whole movie, which probably was a relief to John Woo at the time. And then he co-wrote the movie, but then he got too meddlesome. The power and the money of the first movie had kind of gotten to his head a little bit. And he's like, I want to tell the story about a new character. And, at first John Woo was like, okay, that's cool. We can't just, I mean, some of the characters from the first movie are dead, And so Dean Sheck was enlisted to play a character named Lung. And so he's kind of within the story, and maybe in real life too. He's older than the other characters, not much older than Ty, what's his name? Tai Lung, the actor, the star, Tai Lung, yeah. So the character Lung is older than the actor Tai Lung, but within the story, he's supposed to be a bit more older than him, like he was a mentor to him. Again, didn't mention this character in the first movie, didn't really need to. This movie kind of fleshes out the way that these characters were raised, Ho and his family, and then the Lee family, of which Mark was one in the first movie, played by Chow Yun-fat. So in this film, there's an Inspector Wu. There was an Inspector Wu, W-U, in joke. First one, he was played by John Woo, W-O-O. This one, there's a different Inspector Wu. Apparently, it's an homage, but totally different character, different actor, of course. And in this case, this Wu wants Ho he's in prison indefinitely, apparently, and he hasn't been having a good time, but he's determined to serve his sentence because he's sick of people saying you got to pay your debt to society. And so the guy's like, why don't you finish paying your debt to society and go undercover in this counterfeit ring like you were in? And he's like, counterfeit money. And he's like, I don't know society anything. I'm here. I mean, I'm already doing it, man. And he refuses. So concurrently with this, Kit, the younger cop brother, still played by Leslie Cheung from the first movie, he's given an assignment to break the same ring. And, he takes it. His attitude is much better in this movie. And they do give him a little more leeway. Before it was like, well, your brother's in prison. He's a criminal. We're not getting you these kind of cases anymore. Fuck that. Especially if you have any, brother had any relation to the people involved. This time around, they're like, yeah, go undercover. We want you to investigate this cat Lung. He owns a shipyard. He's very wealthy. That's Dean Sheck's character. And we think he's up to something. He used to be a criminal. Seems like he's gone straight, but we don't buy it. So they give the same spiel to Kit they gave to his brother, of course. And but from a different angle. This time he wants to go undercover as a cop. He's a cop who wants to go undercover. So he goes undercover as a guy named Billy, who begins wooing Peggy, the daughter of Lung, and she, of course, has no idea he's a cop. Conversely, he's married now to Jackie, his girlfriend from the first movie, who's also pregnant, and he won't tell Jackie what his case is. He's in a deep cover mode, kind of like Pacino was in Cruising, you know. And bad news. So uh basically Lung has the shipyard with this cat Co, who's like one of his next in command of the shipyard. We don't get any indication that Co is a bad guy. It seems like he's been manipulated by this gang that they're trying to bust um into maybe cooking the books, or basically they're in debt to them through him, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I fucked up and I believed them and they're actual criminals. And Long has got a hard line. When he first sees them, he won't shake their hand. He's just like you don't fucking exist, because in his mind he's gone straight, even if other people don't trust him, and he has genuinely gone straight, FYI. So he the guy they keep coming around, and Co of course is saying like, oh, I got tricked or whatever. So they set up these characters. Basically, they one of the guys in the gang is this character named Chong, and he's obviously a riff on the hitman in Scarface. And I've seen this type in other Asian movies that came out since Scarface. He's like cold, implacable, and expressionless, relentless. He's got shades, so you never see his eyes. You don't know what his deal is, but he's the guy who will just out of nowhere shoot somebody in the heart and it's over. No matter how many other times they've been shot and survived, he'll finish them off, just like he did in Scarface. That guy did in Scarface. So this character Chong is a lot like that character. I mean, he doesn't really talk. I mean, he doesn't talk at all at first. Later, he talks a little, but he's one of those characters you look at him and you're like, this guy is a sleazy piece of shit. He's gonna fuck somebody up that I like in this movie, and he can't be stopped because he's like a consummate killer. And he sets it up to where Co pulls a gun on the head of the gang. And Lung's like, no, 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 don't do this, don't shoot. And Co's like, you guys tricked me. And so Lung wrestles the gun away. And then the gun goes off. But nothing happens. But it's been set up to where that hitman Chong, from a distance, and no one catches them, has a gun that's got a silencer. He shoots it at the same time that gun goes off, and he kills the head of the gang. Then he kills this other guy who's working with them. So it's like and Lung thinks he did it. He fails his mind fuck on Lung. Lung apparently has some mental health issues, which we get more details on as it goes on. He's very fragile. I think it's because he's had a life of crime. He came up in the streets. Now he's gone straight, but he's nervous, and he's mad. He hates these people. What it turns out being is that Co was in on the setup. So Co, the supposedly bungling guy at the shipyard who was tricked by the evil gangsters, he's actually one of the gangsters. He's been one of the gangsters. So the thing they suspected Lung of, this fucking guy Co is doing it and letting Lung take the fall. So Lung freaks out after he seemingly kills these people, and he goes on the run. By this time, Tai Lung is out of prison and he's undercover and he's trying to infiltrate this gang. Meanwhile, Kit has, like I said, made himself close to the shipyard people by dating the daughter. So the tables kind of turn real drastically, and essentially you realize Co is the main gangster after that other guy who got shot. And then it was all set up. Kill that guy, because that guy was going to kill Lung anyway. But it's like, okay, no, we're going to do it this way. I'm going to get my hitman. We're going to kill the boss so I can be the boss now. And we're going to frame Lung. And so Lung goes crazy, goes on the run, and with Ho's help, he gets away. And he hooks up with this character, Ken, who there's two Kens in this movie. And the doppelganger thing like Lynch does. So Ken from the other movie was he owned a taxi company where he let only criminals come who were trying to go straight. So they all drive taxis. And that's what Ho did for a little while before he got back into getting revenge on the mob. So Ken and Ho help get Lung to safety. He's got a friend in New York City. They're sending him to America. He's going to be way away. They can't get him, at least for a while. So they send him, and he's kind of fragile. He's really worried about his daughter. He doesn't really know what's going on. He feels guilty about shooting people, but he's still fairly cognizant. Uh, so he goes to America, and some of them find him there in New York pretty quickly. And he's hung out with this priest at this, like, what do you call him? Not a missionary, not a hostel, but place where, halfway house kind of place where, people go when they're out of luck, homeless, bums, whatever, or reforming criminals. And he serves them food, and he's a priest, but he used to be a criminal too. This guy Sam the priest used to be a criminal, and he's got the priest outfit, and he rolls up his sleeves. He's got these crazy prison tattoos, and they don't draw attention to it. It's just, as the audience, you watch it, and it's kind of humorous because the camera kind of go, like, look at this. And they find Lung, and they start a shootout, and they kill Sam the priest, who manages to take a few with him, because obviously he used to be a hitman himself. And Lung gets away, but his sanity is completely destroyed. And what he doesn't know, which is going to send him more of the edge later, what he doesn't know is Ko, and one of the killers, has killed his daughter. That Kit has been, two-timing with undercover. And Kit finds her body, and Kit's like, fuck these guys up. Meanwhile, Kit's wife is angry because now she knows he's having an affair. I mean, apparently he really was having sex with Peggy, and he comes clean. He brings Peggy to the house, and he tells both of them, and of course they both are mad as hell at him. But he brings Peggy to the house to protect her, because he knows now Lung's out of the country, they're going to try to kill the daughter. So sure enough, they kill the daughter. The wife's pissed at him. Look, I'm pregnant, but she doesn't make him move out, but he's not there much anyway, because he insists on seeing the case to the bitter end. And so at this point, we kind of go between Ho infiltrating the gang, Kit still trying to infiltrate the gang, and then in America, in New York, Lung is just losing his mind. He's put in an asylum, and the asylum people beat him up. I mean, it's kind of fucked up. It's kind of like cops ganging up on a black guy, but it's like all these white and black attendants at the asylum beating up this Asian guy. It's like, there's nothing subtle about it either. They're basically telling him, they're saying nasty things to him, like, yeah, you want to try to get away, you ain't gonna get away, and they're punching him in the stomach, hitting him in the head. It's a little cartoonish, but basically, so that character is totally debased. And so they put him in a straitjacket, and, they don't tend to his wounds, which aren't that serious, but he's been beaten up. And by this time, we introduce another character out of the blue. So, who's also in New York, and he owns a Chinese restaurant, and he is Chinese, and his name is Ken. So Ken is played by Chow Yun-fat from the first movie. And they don't say it at first, but they imply it pretty early, that he's the twin brother of Mark. He was born a few minutes after Mark. And unlike Mark, basically fell in with that gang from the first movie early on, and Ho took him under his wing. Ken, however, ran away. Ken was like restless. He got away from the crime in Hong Kong, but he was more violent than Mark. And he was such a badass that at 15, basically, he killed some people, burned his bridges, and went to America and started just hanging out in America for a few years, traveling, and then incognito. And then he started this restaurant under his real name, Ken Lee. I mean, it's like there's probably a million Ken Lees, Asian and otherwise, in New York City. So he's cool. So Ken Lee, they had the mob, not the same mob, but this American mob. There's some American characters in this movie speak English. Though some of them are dubbed too. I don't know if they delivered their lines in English or not. I didn't study them. Very bad dubbing, I have to say, or bad acting, whatever. And they start harassing Ken. They like want to take his restaurant. They want to be they're protection racketeers, and they want to, like, hey, you're going to pay me $1,000 a month to keep your restaurant from blowing up. So this is when we first see what Ken's like. So Ken, is very sweet to his coworkers and his employees. I mean, but with these guys, they don't like the rice, and they start throwing the rice back, refusing to eat it. making these kind of thinly veiled racist comments about Asians and rice. And so Ken sits down at the table with him. He's like, and this is Chow Yun Fat. And Chow Yun Fat was speaking English, but Chow Yun Fat was not fluent in English when this movie was made. So probably Wu phonetically had him sound out the dialogue. He might not have known what he was saying, or he may have told him what he was supposed to be saying, but just do your best, And so he's like, the character's native language isn't English either, but he's in New York running a restaurant. He's got to know some English. So he's like, hey, you don't like my rice? You don't like my rice, man? And I got to say, Chow Yun Fat is always very melodramatic, but speaking in English and probably not knowing what he's saying, it comes off as really over the top. And it is an over the top scene. He tries to make the guy eat the rice. And he said, to you, rice is nothing. To me, it's mother and father. Another famous, this also became a famous meme generating rant like his one in the first movie. And this one actually is funny. The other one was serious. It was just very dramatic. This one's like just kind of funny and dramatic. And finally he grabs a gun from either one of his coworkers had a gun to protect them, the restaurant, or the gangsters. I can't remember. There was a few guns floating around. He grabs one. He puts it to this fucker's head and he's like, eat the rice, eat the rice. And he does say it exact. That's his delivery. Because Chow is just like, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just going to be dramatic as hell. And so a cop comes in who's been keeping an eye on these people who are shaking down Ken Lee. And it's a black cop. And he's like, put the gun down, put the gun down. And he's like, no, first he must eat the rice. And then it's hilarious. Then the cop says to the gangster, okay, go ahead and eat the rice first. Then I'll make him put the gun down. He's not fucking around. He doesn't care that I'm here and I'm a cop. He will blow your head apart. And so the guy dives into the rice without any utensils and just starts eating out the plate with his mouth. It's pretty gross. And so Ken puts the gun down and he's, satisfied. And then the scene cuts. And they don't really pursue that thread anymore. They wanted basically to show you that Ken is not to be messed with. And even though he's retired and he's a restaurateur and he's, he hasn't been a gangster since he was 15 years old, but he's still not to be fucked with. So he does, to the credit of Wu and Chow, he does have a different personality than Mark, having mostly been raised in two different countries, even though they're twin brothers. But they come from the same background, and they start to make it clear that not only does Ken also know Ho, well, no, Ken doesn't know Ho, but Ken does know Long, Ho's mentor, because the guy who's now crazy. He knew him from way back in the old country. So he's hanging out in New York, and he's, very now on the defensive since he's been shaken down by gangsters. And he just happens to walk by a mental hospital and sees Lung, and he starts spying on him. He's looking through the window after they've beaten him up, and he's like, I gotta get him out of here. And he's like, Lung, brother Lung, and he obviously Lung, they've kind of now made, even though they didn't, talk about in the first movie, but it's not unbelievable. They kind of retcon in that Lung was kind of all of their mentors, back in Asia, but amazingly, Ho did not know Mark had a twin brother. So they weren't all working together at the same time, but Lung mentored all of them. So he's like, I'm going to save Lung. So he takes him away, and then there's a shootout, and people are going after them, and he realizes, oh, they're trying to kill Lung. They're not trying to kill me. What the fuck? And by this time, Lung is completely off his rocker. He's like animalistic. He's really over it. Dean Sheck is like hamming the fuck up. It's almost unbelievable, but Chow Yun Fat's like, I'm just gonna make it work somehow, and he does. He's kind of like, I know you're going crazy, I know, but instead of being like, we're gonna get you counseling or I'm gonna give you some medicine or something, instead he's like thinking tough love, like super tough love. So finally they hole up in the hotel, and these guys start shooting them. Now, of course, Ken has already anticipated this, and this really isn't unbelievable because gangsters are after Ken, and Ken still has connections to the underworld, even in New York. So a white guy sells him some things in bags that he takes up the stairs, and when he goes upstairs, he's getting really disgusted with Lung, And Lung is obsessed with looking at this picture of his daughter Peggy. Now, no one knows for sure over in New York that Peggy's dead, but Ken has a pretty good feeling she's probably dead. And now that he knows people are hunting, they've all come all the way to America to hunt Lung. Yeah, they probably took out his daughter back in Hong Kong. So he's like, Mr. Tough Love. He tears up the picture. That's pretty mean. And the guy's like, "Whoa!" And he tries to piece the picture back together. And Ken's like, wake up, you've got to live. And so the gunmen come. And of course, the whole time that Ken is talking to him, he's loading his guns because he knows eventually they're going to find them. So of course, then they intercut and they've already found them. They're at the hotel. So he reloaded those guns just in time, right? More faith. And he blows the shit out of them. I mean, it's some of the best shotgun scenes I've ever seen. Just like blam, and these guys just blood goes everywhere. This movie's way bloodier than the first one. And then the guys like jump back. I mean, they get pushed back from the force like a yard into the wall. And then he grabs Lung. He's like, we're gonna get out of here somehow, and we're gonna get out of here alive. And then he's like dragging him, and he's like, you're gonna have to choose between life and death. We're gonna leave, and if you die, I'm gonna die with you, brother. And I'm like, yes, child. Now he's talking in Cantonese, so he's suitably great acting, not hammy. And so he kills a bunch of them, and then they're after Lung, and they get outside, and then Lung sees a gun, and he's not sure what to do. I was gonna say Mark. Ken tries to get him to shoot the gun. He's, and so one of these guys actually manages to shoot Ken in the arm. And man, it's pretty intense. There's like blood everywhere. It's not like a fatal wound, but I'm like, is he gonna be able to keep that arm? And he's bleeding, and he's on the ground, and he's like in a lot of pain, and it's like, wow, I haven't seen Chow Yun-fat in this much pain in a movie before or since. And he's like, and then once again, Lung has a psychotic break of sorts, but it's a healing break. He has a breakthrough. He sees the gun, and he's going, Ken, because he's hardly talked. All he said is and Peggy, his daughter. He hasn't said anything else at all, no words. And so he's like, Ken. And he picks up that gun, and he just starts smoking everybody. He just he gets out and stands there. And of course, in his condition, somebody would have probably shot him, but he's so fast, it's all coming back to him. He just started blowing people away. And then they pan to Ken, and Ken, who's been in agonizing pain, but when he sees that his buddy's sane again somewhat, and that he's killing these motherfuckers, he's like, yeah, he's so happy. He's like, yes, he's like overjoyed at the bloodshed. This shit's in these people's blood, and that's a big theme with this. And so they hook up, and they decide to go to Hong Kong. They're gonna figure out what the hell's going on. And Lung's like, I can do it. He's much more sane, and he realizes Ko betrayed him and had his daughter killed, and he's pretty damn angry. So once again, his personality changes. He has like 3 modes in this movie, and they're all totally different. So maybe he has DID, I don't know, but he's just like, yep, we're gonna kill him. This guy had been totally reformed, and then totally insane and helpless, and now he's like, yep, we're gonna kill him. Come on. And nice touches, like Ken loves it. Ken's just like, brother Lung, you're back, man. And so they go back and they meet with Ho and Kit, and they have a little symposium of their own. And they try to get Kit to drop the case. They're like, your wife's about to have a baby. She's already pissed at you about sleeping with our man's daughter here. So, and Kit's like apologizing to Lung. He's like, I'm sorry, I was undercover. I got her killed. And Lung's like, doesn't matter now. We're gonna get payback. It's like, we got to move forward. It doesn't matter. I mean, he loves his daughter still, but he's just like, it's done. I forgive you. Let's go. Let's fuck him up. And Kid is going to go home to the hospital. He's going to go to the hospital and meet his wife, who's about to have labor, according to Ho. Now, Ho is still infiltrated the gang, so he's just sneaking off meeting with them. So the gang, um, seemingly has some suspicions about him. They decide to test him, and they're like, "There's a guy who's just joined us, and he's really annoying me." This is Ko saying all this. He's like, "I just want you to kill him." And he's like, as a test, he's like, "Okay." So they get there to the meeting place, and it's Kid, his brother. Classic setup. So he shoots him. He shoots him right about here, and he falls down, and Kit's obviously in pain, but he's pretending to be like near death. And then he tries to get to his feet, and Ho's coming up, and Ho's thinking, this is hopeless. I can't kill him. And then he whispers to him, Kit whispers, "Shoot me again. It's got to look real. At least one of us has got to live and get these guys, fuck them up." And Ho's just like super tormented, naturally, trying not to show it to the gang. And he shoots him on the side. And now that does hurt even worse. He falls backward, and he kind of semi loses consciousness. So it's enough for the gang to think he's dead. However, Chong, the implacable hitman I mentioned earlier, he can kind of tell that he might be alive. He's very shrewd. You can't really see his eyes, but you can tell he's like, and so anyway, they all disperse. And then as soon as they're dispersed, Ho turns around the car really fast and goes back and gets his brother, takes him to the hospital. He's holding him in his arms, just all melodramatic with the music. And they managed to take the bullets out. Well, actually, the one in his side went right through him. So the only unrealistic part really is that the gang didn't double check him. But I think Chong's kind of like lodging in his head, like, oh, so Ho's probably tricking us, And they even say to him, "Thank you for killing this guy. To be honest, he just hooked up with us. I really wasn't sure if he was a cop or not. I just want to test you." And I was like thinking, you motherfucker. And so Kid gets out of the hospital. And, after he gets out of the hospital, of course, then his wife, is going to start going into labor shortly. But he doesn't know that at first. So they all meet up. And by this time, Ken, who's met everybody in Asia again, there's a meta level to this. Because, Red Tomorrow was a huge movie, and Mark was an iconic character, his look. So John Woo has worked this artist character into the story. And this artist basically worships Mark Lee. I mean, not like a god, but he kind of like, he kind of, idolizes him. And it's kind of a takeoff on the people in real life who idolize him. And you've already seen some people, even in New York, there are a couple of gang members who dress like Mark to come into the restaurant. And Ken's like, "Don't dress that way. Don't mock him." And like, "No, man, we're cool. No." And at first you think, Ken's going to beat the shit out of them. And then he's like, "Let me offer you some free food." Because he knows they're poor, but they're all trying to be cool like Mark. And I thought that was a good touch. And so this artist has found Ken's trench coat with 50 bullet holes in it and his sunglasses intact. And he's painted all these pictures. And of course, they're all scenes from the first movie. There's great artwork. Some of them are pen and ink. Some of them are paintings. And, prior to this, there was a scene where Ho and the cab driver, Ken, had went there and met him. And they're like, "Wow, this is amazing the way you're honoring Mark." But again, it's like this meta kind of thing, like, because that's kind of what people were doing in real life with Mark. And so when Ken is taken to this place, and Ken's pretty touched about how Mark has been treated, and you start to learn a little bit more about them, their birth, their relationship, and how they're alike and how they're different. And he takes the trench coat and he's like, "Can I have it?" And the guy's like, "Well, of course." He just puts it on, with bullet holes and everything. And then he puts on the sunglasses, and Ho's like, "Oh my god, Mark." And then he's like, "No." He's like, "I told you, I'm a kin. Is a kin." And sometimes his character speaks some English incongruously in the middle of sentences, which some people who are bilingual will do that. I mean, sometimes I've seen that in Asian movies. Indian movies, they do that in their regular culture. I've seen in all their Indian movies, and I've asked Indian people, is that real? Like, you guys talking to each other? Do you throw English words in there? And they're like, "Yeah, okay, and hey, and slang, stuff." Yeah. sometimes right in the middle of a sentence, you know. So he kind of is doing that the whole time because he's halfway grown up in America. Um, so he has all these little, you know, quite a catchphrases he says in English and little subtle jokes. So finally, they decide they're going to go take care of business. And Kit's going to go back, be with Peggy, and then Ken's like, "No, let's bring him. I'm the little brother of Mark. Kit's your little brother. Kit needs to be with us, man. Kit's cool. They've never met before now. He's like, Kit's cool, man. If he wants to come, and then he gives him the thumbs up, and so Kit's like all excited. He's like, okay, I'm going to follow you and go on my motorcycle. And there's another scene shortly after that, where after they've done some stakeout, they convene and try to get their final plan together. And they decide that all four of them, plus Ken, the cab driver, all five of them are going to go. And the cab driver has obtained all these weapons because everyone who works for him, you know, was ex-cons and criminals. So he has these bags full of weapons, you know, and they're getting together. And Kit says something. It's the inverse of the last scene. Kit's like, maybe I won't go with you. I don't know. And then Mark's like, this time Ken, not Mark, leans over and gives him the thumbs up. And this lean over and the thumbs up is a meme. It's a popular meme. You put in thumbs up on GIF, this will come up in the top 10. Chow Yun Fat leaning back with this thumbs up. I misremembered it as being from Hard Boil, but it was from Better Tomorrow too. And you know, I've used it with people a lot, and I've seen people use it a lot. And I've even been like, "Oh, Chow Yun Fat," and they're like, "Who?" And I'm like, "Okay, never mind." At least you like it. And so they all go, and Kit is going kind of the long way around. He's like trying to get into the nerve center of the counterfeit, spy on them, take pictures, stuff for the cops, and not get caught. So unfortunately, he gets caught by Chong, our hitman dude. He tries to draw in time, and he doesn't. Chong blows him. Well, he doesn't kill him, but he does blast him in a near his chest, and so he might not make it. And Ken tells everyone else to go ahead of them. He's going to save Kit, so he goes and saves Kit, kind of like in the first movie where Mark goes back and saves Kit, and he saves Kit. Kit's bleeding to death, and they're trying to get away from their little compound. And he's trying to take him to the hospital, or getting near the hospital. And then he's like, "Stop at a phone booth." And Kid's like, "Man, we're almost there." And he's like, "Stop at the phone booth. I want to call my wife in the hospital. She's having a baby." And there's almost like this psychic thing where he kind of senses that the baby's about to come because it's his child. You know, they don't, it's kind of a, mystical thing. They don't try to elaborate. So the literalists give it up, forget it. And, and so they go to the phone booth, and they actually manage to get, Ho is with Peggy. I mean, Jackie, the wife. And he's like, "Let me talk to you." And then he's like, "Let me talk to the baby." And then she's like, "What do you want to name him?" And he tells the name. And the subtitles are cool because they give you the translation of the name. And it's same last name as him and Ho, and a different first name. And it means something like a spirit of righteousness or something. And so then he dies. And Ken's pretty fucked up. So he takes the body to the hospital, and it's a mess. But the baby has been born. The baby has been named, and you don't really see what happens to Jackie after that. But now these guys are really like, okay, they killed Kit. It's on. So they go back to the compound where Ken just brought Kit from. His blood is still on their fence, and this time they're all wearing their suits. Ken's wearing the Mark trench coat, and in most of the holes, he puts grenades. He hooks them on there. And they're all loaded to the teeth. And they tell Ken, the taxi driver, to go home. It's like, it's not your fight. Somebody has to get out of this alive. Just go home. And he's like thinking, well, but I got the weapons. I got the bags. He leaves some, but he has another. And so the three guys come in, and for a while, they're pretty successful at annihilating every single person in their path without getting shot themselves. Then things start to turn a little weird, and Ho gets shot once, and then Lung gets a little overzealous, and he gets shot like 3 or 4 times. Still going though, but he's in a lot of pain. And meanwhile, Ken is like going to blow up their entire operation. So he finds the counterfeit room that Kit described, and he puts grenades all through it. and takes the tops off, runs to the door, and he takes his dynamite, which he lights with his cigarette, throws in there, slams the door, starts to run, and it's still like it's massive explosion. He's like knocked to the ground. And when he's knocked to the ground, unfortunately, his guns get tossed away, and that's when Chong the hitman finds him. So they're shooting him. He can't get his guns, and all of a sudden, Ken the taxi driver is still there. He leans in the window and he's like, "I still got the bag. I didn't leave. Here's the guns." He's like, "Cool, just keep giving me guns." And finally, when the two are across from each other, well, it's after they think they've killed Ko, because they find a guy. They see Ko running. So it's a setup. Ko had another guy dressed like him in an all white suit, apparently on purpose, but a guy who had a lot more hair than him. So when they get close up to this guy, almost close to him, all three of these guys are shooting him at the same time because they fucking hate this guy. He's ruined everybody. And then it's like not him. And Ko is still getting away. And then Ko's like, "I'm going to give $100,000 for every one of these guys killed. So to each one who does it." And they're like, "Yeah." And Ken finds himself face to face with Chong. They shoot each other several times. So this is the first time Ken's been shot. And it sucks. And he's leaning over, he's holding himself up on his gun out of ammunition. And the other guy still has some guns in his pocket, but he decides, I guess, he's probably dying too. Let's just make this honorable and do a quick draw. So he slides one of his guns over to Ken, and Ken outdraws him. He still gets shot one more time by the guy. The guy gets shot about 2 or 3 more times and finally dies. So you're like, okay, thank God, the asshole's done. But now Ken's kind of fucked up too. So Ho, who's the least fucked up, comes in and rescues the other 2 guys. He grabs a samurai sword. I can't remember if they brought that or if it was just on the residence, but he gets a hold of it. He, the actor has played in a ton of sword play and kung fu movies, so he starts like slicing everybody to death, and he doesn't get shot again. Ho's got pretty good luck, for a while, and they find Ko, and yeah, it's a massacre. Ko's head is blown off, and it's wonderful. The shot, like, they give you the gratification. They like close up on his head with the big bullet hole, and you're like, yeah. And that's it. They've killed everyone else, and Ken's still lingering around. He's like, "Okay, we got to get y'all to the hospital," and they're like, we're gone. But it's really cool. They all sit in their chairs, and Ho has like the samurai sword. The other guys have their guns. They're all like, the other 2 guys are just riddled with bullets. Ho's got 2, and one's like in down here, so he's probably gonna die. And they're just like, "Yeah, it's fine." And so the cops were called, and the cops come in, and they're like, "Freeze!" And they're just like, "Hey," And Ken leaves. Ken also had been shot once, and he's a limp. He's limping away, bloody. So he gets away, but these 3 guys are just there, and it's kind of like very matter of fact. It's just like, we're gonna die, and this is what we knew we were gonna die.
Yeah.
Because the taxi driver had been like, "Let's get your getaway car ready," and Long's like, "We're not gonna need that." Come on, man. And it's just like the Wild Bunch. It's like, let's go out in a blaze of fucking glory. And you don't see them any of the 3 actually expire, and you do see Kit's death, of course, and that was very tragic. But then that's it. And so it's the wonderful theme music comes in, and you're like, well, okay, so they die, but we don't see them die. Right. And they've taken out all their enemies, so they have managed to outlive every single one of their enemies. And so it's kind of, in a way, more satisfying than the previous movie. In a way, less so, because in the previous movie, you kind of knew the 2 brothers weren't going to live, even though they're injured. This one is like, these guys are not going to make it out. They're not going to even try to make it out.
Right.
And they're basically saying, there's a few words and body language to the cops, like, there's no point in arresting us. We're bleeding out. So fun. Yeah. And that shot of the 3 together bloody has become kind of an iconic shot from the movie. And So yeah, I think overall it was less serious than the first movie from beginning to end. It had a lot more humor, a lot of like weird touches. Some people don't like the pacing on the first half. So what happened was Choi Hark decided that Lung's got to be the main character, and all the returning characters, and even the Chow Yun Fat as the new character, are second under Dean Sheck. I don't know, maybe him and Dean Sheck were, and I'm just kidding, but he was like obsessed with Dean Sheck being the star, and so the first half of the movie some people don't like. They're like, it's very erratic, the pacing is weird, and all this crazy shit happens with Lung, and he goes crazy, and it's like really drawn out. And but so what I found out was that basically Choi Hart cut the first half of the movie. He edited it, and John Woo put his foot down. It's like, I'm gonna edit the last act of the movie, fucker. I'm gonna make sure this shootout is great, and everybody's gonna get their equal due, not just Dean Sheck. And so him and Choi Hark had a fight. I don't know if it came to fisticuffs, but they're basically like, I'm never working with you again, bastard. And I'm not working with you again, motherfucker. And so Choi Hark's like, but I'm going to make Better Tomorrow 3 in Vietnam. And John Woo's like, yeah, I'm going to make a better Vietnam movie called Bullet in the Head. Now, I haven't seen either of these movies, so I can't comment on which was better, but I kind of have very little doubt that as good a director as Choi Hark is, that John Woo's Bullet Head's probably better. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I saw Bullet in the Head a long time ago, and it was excellent. It's another great Woo film.
Did you see A Better Tomorrow 3?
No, I did not see that one.
Admittedly, it's one that not many of us we're seeking out.
Yeah.
So now I'm so curious. I kind of do want to see it, but
I love that shootout at the end of Better Tomorrow 2. I love that shootout.
It's amazing. A lot of people posted just that last
incredible.
Sequence, just 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's almost up to the very end of the movie. Well, it kind of is bumping against the end of the movie.
Better Tomorrow 1 had good moments of shootouts, and 2 had that longer shootout at the climax, which was incredible. And then The Killer came out, and that was like, whoa.
Oh yeah, Killer's like next level. It's got set pieces all through the movie.
But then Hard Boiled came out after Killer.
Yeah.
I love shoot 'em up movies. Hard Boiled is still probably the greatest.
So we're gonna wrap up. Does anybody have any final closing comments about either of these films? If not, we will get on out of y'all's hair.
You said it all, buddy.
What I didn't say, y'all said, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Good job, guys. So come back and see us. We'll be back soon with Deep Images. We're gonna have plenty of fun stuff. We're gonna be doing. You'll be seeing me and Marksman take on Bes Moi, which is both a crime film and an extreme film symposium. So stay tuned. We got plenty of more stuff coming. Lots of fun stuff. So,
cool.
Anything you'd like to say to these folks before we leave, Marksman?
Well, all I can think of is if you love what we do as much as we love doing it, like and subscribe. Helps us out greatly. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Come back to see us.
Breathing in fire, my blaze, fueling my last days. No reason, consistent treason, no right to live. Could you forgive?